must do something to ensure that even if we disagree with power, we shall find legitimate ways of addressing that concern. Extraordinary session of ECOWAS Parliament opens in Winneba, and that story is also captured on page 17 of the Ghanaian Times. If we can start with the discussion, producer, in the course of the discussion, I'll be running our viewers by some of the headlines. Of course, 133 FM stations granted provisional licenses, and that's from the NCA, Radio Gold, Radio XYZ among the applicants. Of course, Capital Radio in Kumasi is also part of these 133 FM stations. Quite some good news. Plurality of media, very important and crucial to our democratic dispensation. Quite some refreshing news, but there is a caveat. These stations will have to participate in a sensitization workshop before the licenses will be given to them. And of course, according to the NCA, they must abide by the rules of the game. I am relieved. Ayaruga expresses joy as special prosecutor drops charges. Quite some good news for him, the member of parliament for Boku Central. 4 parties support LGBTQI plus bill, 1 opposes draft law. President receives Serbia's highest award. Of course, the Ghanaian Times also captured this story on its front page on Tuesday, and the Daily Graphic also has this story on page 17. If you want to read more of that, grab a copy of the paper. The National Petroleum Authority removes fuel levies prices to reduce by an average of 15 pesos. That's an estimated 7%. Finance Minister Youth brainstorm today, and that's today's edition of the Daily Graphic. VAT scarce exploration firms, and that's according to the Ghana Chamber of Mines. Of course, this issue has also been in the public space. The mining companies are unhappy with that aspect of our regime, and they want a change, but the country is also considering the revenue it gets from this sector for its socio-economic development. Government to develop 150,000 acres of grazing reserves, and that's also some good news. Of course, if you look at the impact of climate change, we need to do more of this so that we can mitigate the impacts of climate change. I mean, let's start with the discussion. In the course of it, we'll be telling you more of the stories that were captured on the front pages of the papers. Let me introduce my guest in the studio. I have Mr. Kamaluddin Abdullah. He's the Deputy Communication Director of the New Patriotic Party. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Also will be joining us for the NDC, Mr. George Lowe, former MP for North Dai. He's yet to join us, but we'll start with the conversation later. On Zoom, we'll be joined by Nana Musi, Executive Director, Institute of Energy Security, on this MPA levies, the price stabilization levy that has been taken off for 2 months, and also John Sampa, Deputy General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, will be joining us on the directive by the Controller Department urging public sector workers to get NIA card before December 1 or get their salaries frozen. It's a packed show, as I said. You don't need to go anywhere. This is where you have to be at this time to have a fair idea of what went on in the course of the week. Mr. Kamaluddin, thank you so much for your time. First time having you on this platform.
Thank you very much for having me, and I may say I'm quite elated to be here. It's a wonderful show you have, and I believe that we're going to contribute to shaping the thinking of people and doing what is right for us as Ghanaians.
Well, before we start with the discussion, I'll take this quick break. When I return, the ground is set for all that happened in the course of the week. Stay with me, don't go away.
Good morning.
It's a good morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling helping.
And there's much more on offer on GTV Breakfast.
So what's your pleasure than Votrasia at that time of the morning?
You want it served buffet style, complimentary breakfast,
On-site restaurant,
or room service?
we've got you covered.
From Monday to Friday at 6 a.m.
With a trusted team.
So never skip breakfast.
On GTV Breakfast.
In the month of October, GBC News is offering its news platform to you, our viewers, to try your hands at citizen journalism. We've toured the country and brought you news reports from all spheres. Now, it's your turn to show us your prowess by telling us stories from your localities. You've seen us on the field. Now, pick up your tools and hit the trail with your cameras and capture the issues of concern around you. You can go all out, full measure, shaken together and running over. Send your videos to us on WhatsApp numbers 026 4000 996 or 026 4000 997. We will air your story in our news, giving you credit for your effort. Don't be left out of our October special news and governance channel.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We've been joined in the studio also by Mr. George Lowe, former MP for North Dai. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and it's good to be here.
Yes. So let's start with the first topic. The Electoral Commission says it has saved the country some $90 million in the conduct of the 2020 election. That's according to the chairperson of the commission. Madam Jane Mensah said this was achieved through a reduction of the cost of the election from $13 per head to $7.7 in 2020. The 13 was in 2016, according to her. Moreover, it has also been able to cut the time for passing through the process from 10 minutes or more to between 3 to 5 minutes, which according to the EC is an improvement from what happened in the previous elections. She was addressing the ceremony of the high-level parliamentary seminar on 2 decades of democratic elections in ECOWAS member states, achievements, challenges, and the way forward in Winneba. Let's start with the discussion. Let me start with you, Mr. Kamaluddin. The EC, from all that it has said, is painting a picture of doing massively well in the 2020 election. From the side of the governing MPP, is it a true picture of what happened in 2020?
Well, thank you very much once again, Sani, and thank for having us. Let me say a very good morning to my good friend George Lowe, who happens to be a first vice chairman of his party as well in the Volta region. Of course, so it appears that they have interest, or they are key stakeholders in election affairs in this country, just as I'm also a deputy communication director of a party who also would say that clearly we have so much interest in election affairs, as it were. Embedded in the role of the Electoral Commission, we cannot run away from. Also embedded in our constitution is the establishment of political parties and how they should, handled by members of same, and how they should promote candidates for public elections in this country. By extension, even independent candidates can also, as well, per the laws of this. Again, the same commission is mandated by law to go before, submit before Parliament a budget that anticipates organization of an election that is ahead of them. Having submitted, Parliament in its wisdom would look at it. Yes, if they deem fit, submitted to them, will then go ahead to, if you like, approve of same. Then the executive will release funds for such implementations to be done. All these processes, I believe, came after Madame Jim's commission. Now she had a duty to perform, which had to do with election 2020 general election. First, they had the organization of getting registration being done, and the argument was that, look, the electoral rule that we to them seemed problematic. This was tabled before IPAC, and IPAC of all, and I believe interest on that. Agreed, unanimous, had to do with, yes, we should go ahead with the registration of new voters, which was done. COVID protocols, yes, we had it. After that, organization of the election. So they had series of activities per their calendar running to where we are, which of judiciary interests, components, which has to do with cost or financial components. Question is, prudently was given to them by Parliament or by Ghanaians, as it were, per the laws of this country. They've come to explain to us today that indeed the calculations that they did had to do with a single person, okay, spend close to $7. Sure that the democracy that we have, to ensure that indeed the democratic now juxtaposing same to 2016, she wasn't the budget was presented, how much was supposed to be spent on a head or each person, or less we are told. Now they were able, even in the midst of having a new register, in the midst of having to ensure that protocols of COVID has been followed, other materials and all that, then of having done of ensuring that ballot papers were printed and all other activities that come with election, they were able to make do. Hence, when you compare what was spent in 2016 or what was spent in 2020 by the Jane Mensah-led administration, there's a whooping amount of $90 million that has been saved for Madagascar or to Madagascar. So now, if that explanation is what to go by, I mean, we don't have to give them. I have seen a country, but when after election, the Electoral Commission in Zambia had to return some checks to the state coffers. That look, the money you gave us, we've had this balance, and we are bringing it back. It's not only Zambia; other countries saying that yes, explain to us that cost-wise, this was what, and this is what we intend to do going forward. And to us, aside even the cost, the activities that followed or that led to this election points to the fact that we had a very positive election, we had a clean election, and we had an election that of commendation or demand.
I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Mr. Lowe. You've heard from your counterpart, you've heard from Madam Jane Mensah when she addressed the forum and highlighted the many successes that the EC chalked in the 2020 election. Is that a true reflection of what the NDC saw in 2020 election?
Well, again, thank you, and thank you, and it's still morning, isn't it?
Yes.
Good morning to Kamal, and also to our good viewers and listeners. Well, you singing their own song. They are entitled to it. When you scrutinize, you would find that it's not the totality of the story that is being. First, let me correct It's 60 million.
It's 90 million.
It's 90 million.
90 million.
So
your producers give us 60 million.
Yes.
In fact, it's 90 million.
90 million. Okay.
Terrible. But the point I'm
so you
making.
didn't even read the story. If you had read it.
No. I'm correcting you because it's 60 that
was sent
to me.
No, but you should have done your job.
They would have covered the story.
Interjection should not start to
No, they would have covered the story. So I was going to give them the benefit.
So it's 90. Let's move forward.
Now, the question is, what was the were the things that the Electoral Commission said they were going to do? It included picture face recognition and all that. No, they never did. There are many things that they've highlighted that they were going to do that they couldn't do. We are aware the machines that they used were old machines. You remember that argument came back. And let me just, the compilation of in itself was not something that was agreed by all parties. You remember that the NDC vehemently opposed it. We thought that the old register was okay and there was nothing wrong with it. But they insisted that they wanted to end all, and it came with so many procurement issues. Remember, Imani had to come in, and even as I speak, by Simmons and others are still convinced that we didn't get value for money when it came to procurement and related issues with the EC. But like I'm saying, they are singing their own song. There is the reality, and then there is what people see by themselves. The 2020 did not go as flowery as they are using flowery language to describe. If he did, he wouldn't have ended up in court. If he did, we would not have been talking about 8 people for the first time in the history since 8 souls were lost.
Will it be fair if I use the same words to describe the 2012 elections where it ended up in courts and the NDC was still declared by the court as well?
I am saying that. Why would anybody go to court when they are satisfied with what has gone on? We've had elections which didn't end up in court. So I am not here to say that some electoral commission. I'm only saying that if the elections had gone well and everybody was satisfied with the outcome, no.
Okay.
So bottom line is that Madam Jenensa can sing her own song as she is doing. We, the NDC, are not convinced that we got value for money for the elections, as she wants us to believe, that it wasn't free and fair, that a lot of anomalies went on. Most of the issues that came up with the parliamentary elections and sometimes the presidential elections that had to end up in court, that are still, this is one election that there are about 9 or 10 petitions still ongoing in court. So why, if you did such a flowery and such a fantastic job?
You talked about the number of people that have lost their lives in the election. In fact, the chairperson of the EC responded to this yesterday. Is not in charge of providing security. So as far as what they are in charge of, that is making sure the process and all equipment needed for the process is ready, they've done their bit. It's in the hands of the. They know that there is an ongoing investigation when it comes to this issue.
Unfortunately, today she's only supposed to provide logistics and
ensure the process.
But did the process go well? Let me give you, in Techima, in other places, who were the culprits that fingers were pointed at? Was it not the Electoral Commission officials?
Well, you said the matter is in court.
I am saying that. Why did people, demonstrate? Why did people go on the street? Why did people try to fight their way? Where even declarations were done outside the premises that has been dedicated by the declaration. You saw it. You saw the popular video where NDC officials by Colonel Bovulbalate went all the way up, and election officials were asked for duplicate sheets, and they said they were giving all sorts of stories. Clearly, she cannot say they had a smooth conduct of the elections. There were, a lot of things went wrong, a bit too many. I would have thought that Madam Jane Mensah would have said, well, we've done a fairly good job. We can only get better. But if you are creating a florid picture as though this is the most fantastic job,
they done fairly good.
I mean, at the close of the day, you cannot say that it was all wrong. You understand? And admittedly, there are things that may have happened that she may have overlooked and might not have expected. But I'm saying that for her as electoral commissioner, she should have been telling us some of the challenges that she had, and that she should be telling her how we would better some of those things. Not the way she's doing. So clearly, as far as we are not satisfied that she ran such a fantastic job.
In terms of the costs, they've brought the cost down from $13 to $7. You don't find that something...
Let me tell you. Madam Jane Mensah's, one of their arguments was that our electoral register was bloated. And that a lot of the things that were there, she comes back, and the NPP, as a faithful ally to the EC, had all sorts of notions.
What do you mean by a faithful ally?
Yeah, but they, I mean, you saw the videos where some of their officers, and were going around saying that, hey, voter region, you can only register 30. All the people are registering are not from your region, and all those kinds of things. They painted that picture that they were good, but when the real registration figures came, even in some areas there were people who could not register. But when the figures came, what did we find? Did we find any so distorted gap between the figures that we had before?
Okay.
So clearly, I am saying that, one, to the extent they roll out their full program, and to the extent that we were confident they even used some machines that they didn't buy the full complement of machines, that they can save money, or that what they are supposed to spend would have been less, because the budget they provided included face recognition and all other things. It didn't happen. So it's not out of play. I mean, when they say they save money, if I give you 100 cedis to go and buy 5 cars, and you bought 3.
Okay, I'll bring you. Let me bring Mr. Kamal. Respond to this.
You had better stay.
No, Sonny. The issue on this table for us to discuss has to do with whether or not the Electoral Commission, stands that they have been able to save a lot of money and gone to indicate how they have been able to do that. Okay, that is the issue on the table. My good brother chooses to say that, look, painting a picture that shows that the election that was held was free and fair, to him is not fair. He raised issues. His concern is that if the elections were fair and free, then we would not have seen a case at the Supreme Court challenging same election. I find that quite in terms of argument. 2012, when we went to, you were the winners. You claim everything was excellent about the election. So are you telling me that if the case goes to court as mandated by the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, it means that the election is flawless? I mean, it's faulty? No, with all respect.
It's not my word.
Let's not start with the interjection. I'll give you the time to respond.
Of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana have had or contemplated that there could be a situation where when election is held, somebody will feel dissatisfied. Then they go to court to challenge same with evidence. We have been to court in 2012 to challenge an election which you claim was completely sacrosanct or was clear and clean. Today, John Dramani Mahama persistent calls, by meaning, well-meaning Ghanaians. And you sit here to say that it was well with the election, a case in court. Then I ask the question, if a case doesn't mean that that election was faulty, no. You go to court and the rule of the game, I'm happy you're a lawyer, and you have even been a member of the legal and constitutional team in parliament. My point here is that you go to court with your evidence, prove it, let everybody find out indeed A, B, C, D and is faulty in this case. Anyway, if you hold a view of a faulty nature, that has been your stand in the first place. But for us not to do propaganda with this, but let me add this. Before you even went to court, you told the whole world that you had won the election. You were on record. Your communication officer came to declare that the NDC won the election. And if the NDC claimed they won the election, you went to court, which you claim you have won. When they asked you whether you have won, you said, no, I didn't win the election, and the one who is said to have won also didn't win. You yourself. Contradicting your own self. You said you had won. You went to court, you couldn't say you had won. Okay, the one who they claim has won, okay, hasn't won, you haven't also won. Then the court asks you, what figures did you get in that election? You claim. You did so well. You couldn't even tell the whole world. You couldn't even tell the court where you are looking for justice, what figures you got. Yes, you come and sit here and say it's faulty. So when you do
this, relief altogether,
and
they were not asking the courts to pronounce who had won, to highlight the burden, according to them, the flaws in
a saying that the burden of proof alleges. He's a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer. If you allege that this has been commissioned, you need to prove why that has been commissioned and it's wrong. You went to court and the judge tells you, not a case. It's about numbers. What was your result? Judge Lowe couldn't tell the whole world what they were.
Let me bring in Judge Lowe.
He cannot. So, no,
very quickly.
You had time. It makes a case here that Electoral Commission cannot say that they had a died, and then the Commission seeks to exonerate themselves from the deaths, and that there's even a case as we speak in Techiman. Simple question: the case in Techiman, is it about murder against the EC? No, it's about coalition. It's not about murder. You see, we let us take matters seriously and discuss them as it is. The matter before the court in Wenchi regarding the Techiman South election has nothing to do with murder. Even somebody died in Techiman South anyway. But matter is discussing in perspective what's before us. The matter before the court is not murder at all. And we cannot go petrol looking for issues to paint the EC black when we know that there's no issue. Madame J. Mensah simply said, it's unfortunate that we lost 8 lives. But they are not in charge of security. Those in charge of security are there. And it's about stakeholders coming together to ensure that our democracy triumphs. What happened in Bojuase, what's the name? I think, what's the name of the constituency? It's Bojuase. I'll get the constituency's name. That where some people died. Somebody went to up down by the military men. You're saying that no Electoral Commission calls that? No, it's mind-boggling. You can't understand this. So my point here is that it's unfortunate a single life. It's really sad. However, we shouldn't sit here and then blame the EC when in fact it's not the EC that we need to blame.
Okay, let me bring in Judge Lowe. You may want to respond before the substantive question.
Respond again? Say what?
Why?
To say what?
Why?
He was trying to
No, I'm saying I was not the response. To say what? Listen, you see, I think that Kamal, he started.
Oh no!
I think that he understands the issues completely. One. You see, there is cause and there is what? Effect. Techiman, is it from the elections? And is it not the death? It wasn't an election-related issue.
Is it related to costs?
Cost, not cost.
Okay.
Cost. Something. Something cost something. What was cost? And the history of Ghana. And that is the point I want him to understand. That if something hadn't gone wrong for people to protest in Techiman, The chairman has held, listen, the chairman has held elections all these years. Nobody had died as a result of elections. So when somebody dies this year, there's something wrong. Now he goes on to talk about the funny court and they said figures and things like that. Look, he's an upcoming lawyer. Every lawyer has their theory of the case, and every lawyer has their strategy of the case. Why did the question Ghanaians should keep asking themselves every day when they wake up? Why did Madame Jane Mensah run away from court when she was supposed to go into the box and ask the relevant question?
A lawyer cannot talk like this.
I'm saying, why did she? Why did she?
What do you mean? I do the questioning here. What do you mean she ran away?
She ran away because in every litigation, there is a plaintiff, there is the defense. You understand? In this thing, there is a petitioner, there is a response.
We are all playing by the rules of the game.
We are playing by the rules. Normal procedure is, okay, so I say what I have. Then you go into the box and you say what you have. Then lawyers ask each other questions. The judges are supposed to listen to both sides and make a determination.
And is this what must happen? That's by the point of law.
Listen. That is the...
He can't answer your question directly.
That is the general rule.
Mr. Judge Law,
he cannot.
From the legal point of view,
yes.
If I hire you as my client to, and let's say I'm seeking some relief, and you go in and find out that per the argument of the other party that we are in court with, I can explore, take advantage of certain lapses and win the case for my clients.
You see, there is what we call the substance of a matter. The substance requires that both parties are heard and listened to. That is why they do it in open court. So that what you say in open court and what the judges say, the masses will determine that the judges really took the midway. We don't agree. That, and you know what is happening now. That has brought some huge confusion in the legal. Because now people are also wanting to adapt Mensah, and it will not help any court come to the determination of the matter. So if right now, anytime there is a court case, and then the defendant says that, go to the box and give my defense. So at the close of the day, what is the yardstick that is being used?
Shouldn't that, no, Mr. Kumar,
so you see,
should be the worry you don't mount the box, argue your case. It's going to inure to your disadvantage.
No.
So if I decide not to mount, like we saw in the, it's rather should be a disadvantage.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. You see, let me tell you something. In there are things that are in your peculiar knowledge. There are things that are my peculiar knowledge. So you must be able to tell the other side.
Based on your line of arguments, the court should go with a determination.
If that is the case, dependent in any proceeding. No. If that is the case, no. You see, if that is the, you see, don't mix. No, please, don't mix. You see, in criminal jurisprudence, it's a different matter altogether because the standards are different. You understand? In criminal jurisprudence, you are there. If you are the prosecution, it is your duty to make a case against me. That is why they have sub. But in civil, have submission of no case.
Let me get.
So the reality on the ground is that we, to the extent that Madame Jane Mensah elected to tell the people of Ghana how she conducted the elections, she has failed a duty to this nation. And let's also look at it not only from even the legal gymnastics where you can use technicalities to get out, but she's a she owes a duty. To account for her stewardship.
Is that the only avenue for her to account? Parliament can call her to account for the conduct of the elections.
You see, it is not for anything that we have a third arm of government called judiciary.
My question is that the only avenue?
I am saying that there are several avenues that have been outlined. She doesn't submit her budget to the Supreme Court, actually. Parliament's power of scrutiny is outlined. Okay, we have decided that when somebody is not satisfied with an election and he goes to the Supreme Court, this is how it should be that's how it should go. And I say that a constitutional office holder must always be prepared to account for a stewardship, irrespective of the platform. That goes to the root of the office.
I find this more of a moral argument.
I'm surprised. Can I
whatever it is, whether moral or legal, I am saying that. Are you saying that if I carried out any duty to this nation, I should be able to say to that, well, technicalities will allow me to walk away, so I will not? That should not be it. Of that constitution. The spirit of that constitution says that everybody, that is why when you put it there, Article 71, you get all the things that you get. Because the duty that has been imposed on you is what? Is huge. And at all material times, the expectation of the people of Ghana, they say power emanates from the people, isn't it? And so you must be able to account for the people, irrespective of the platform. If they put you, when they take you to account 10 times.
Okay.
Sani,
I'll come to you.
Sani, I think today I'm very sad. I'm scandalized by the stance of a lawyer.
Oh, please.
Who should be educating me and you. I don't know whether you're a lawyer or not. But you see, the point is that there is procedure in every legal matter that is before the court. And I will quote Lord Denning, who says that the due process of law is as good as a substantive law. Okay? The famous Lord Denning said that due process of law is as good as a substantive law that is in place. Why am I using this? If you close a case and you tell the court that my case is closed, I don't intend to call any witness, and you are the one who brought the case before, this is track knowledge, common knowledge, and has to do with the practice in court. I have not been in court before as a lawyer. I'm happy he just refers to me as a student who is reading and starting to become like him one day. However, the education I've had has to do with, look, the standard practice is simple, that you come to make an allegation, the court listens to you, the court gets to the vein of the matter and asks you, have you closed your case? Then you say, I have closed my case. Then the person you seek to pontificate that he or she has done a wrong says that, okay, fine, if you have closed to deliver, say I have a matter before the Supreme Court. Says fine. The man says he has nothing to say. So if you've closed your case and they've also closed, based on what we have, we shall juxtapose same to the laws and then give a judgment. Then you say no, he must come. Is that the practice in court as a lawyer? Oh. No, I disagree. Listen. I am saying that you don't close a case if you hadn't closed your case. They had an opening.
We are wrapping up on this.
We're wrapping up. They had an opening available to them that call a chairperson of the Electoral Commission to further answer questions from me. The Supreme Court will not deny you that, technically.
But that is
you tell
that is a
no,
not misinformed.
But I'm not misinforming. That is what. No, don't do this. I am not. I said, and I'm saying that we all watch the proceedings and we all watch the arguments that came. We all watch what the bench had to say, and the bench said we cannot compel a witness. It is not done anywhere, no practice. If the witness said, I am not coming, we cannot compel. And they cited a lot of references.
And then you say, no, I'm not cutting you. He said that based on the fact that the EC chairperson is holder of Ghanaians in the conduct of the elections, at least for the purpose of accountability, she should have mounted the box.
As simple as that. We are making the law argument and not a moral argument here. The law argument is that you have a case to build, and you have said to the bench that my case is closed, we are done.
So he's saying now, that not even on the legal technicality.
No, we don't do moral argument. What you want? It's not about emotion. And that practice is. And I'm saying that you have said that my case has been closed. That's where. Now, if you then come to say that no, though I've closed my case, I still want this person to come. You cannot do that.
Look,
that is what is there.
Okay.
And I said,
see, let's not be. I wish I didn't even have to argue because he hasn't got the capacity.
no, I do.
What I'm saying is that, let me tell you, ask him total witnesses. Demanded that to subpoena now, and then
witnesses.
Listen, and the bench refused. But what we must also understand is that so far as we are concerned, I always say that is why we are human beings. Yeah. I still hold the view that the bench was wrong.
So that
view, and that many other lawyers. But the only reason today on 26, are we not going for a decision? It tells you that even then, some people believe that the bench was wrong. So they are going for it. So at the close of the day, if you tell me a court, that's what transpired. But I've moved on from that legal. I'm telling you that the spirit of the Constitution demands that she will account for a stewardship. And one of the most
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Move on to our next subject. Fuel prices could fall in the coming days following plans by the government to zero the price stabilization and recovery levy on petrol, diesel and liquefied petroleum gas (LPG) for 2 months. Now, the proposal has been approved by President Akufo-Addo as a measure to cushion consumers against mounting fuel prices. The National Petroleum Authority, which announced this in a statement on Monday, added that the authority will now work with the Ministry of Energy to quicken the legislative processes needed to make this effective. The LPG imposed, the levy imposed 16 pesos per litre on petrol, 14 per litre on diesel, and 14 per kilogram on LPG. Reducing the levels to zero could result in the prices of the three products falling by an average of 15 pesos. On Wednesday, the oil marketing companies and the MPA announced that prices of fuel will be adjusted upwards by at least 7% at the pumps come Saturday, October 16. Mr. Jodlo, let me start with you. We're seeing on the international markets price of crude going up as a result of many factors, the geopolitics and the after effect of the pandemic. On the local front, we know issues of taxes on the price build-up is also a concern to players in the oil marketing space. Government is doing away with 15 pesos for consumers prior Christmas. Is that welcoming?
Well, it's a because it's just for 2 months. But you know that we have been suffering this for some time now. Almost every go.
Yeah.
And there's a carry-on call for government to look at the taxes. But it is not geopolitics, the pandemic and things that is making our oil or our petroleum products expensive, but also that there are a lot of taxes on it. And people have been calling for government to actually. So, one vein, you could say that, well, at least it's better than nothing. But like I said, it's a drop in the ocean. That what government can do, even if they will reduce the 15 pesos to maybe like 10 pesos and make it run for the year or something, I think that we will be better served. But as at the 2 months, and even come because Parliament is not in session, 6 or so or something. Yes, and have to go through election before the assent, and then it will have suffering. I think just 2 days ago or something, it went up again by 7 cities.
The next pricing window, from what we are gathering, is suspected to even go, and that's the reason why come with this intervention, anticipating the hikes in the maybe possibly providing some
relief. But I'm saying that the relief is too short. A drop in the ocean. So I would have wanted a longer period so that we know that we are really enjoying of it. But I would be the first to say that maybe the government wants to run a 2-month program. See if they
effect on revenue.
Yes, and then possibly if they can run it, they would wish really that it is getting a bit worrying. But you see, the politics side of it, this should always, I always say that some things should not be politicized. You see, when my brothers were in opposition, fuel was one of the things that went on. But I'm sure that they've come to realize that most of the time, it is not with when some of these things happen. So I think that these are lessons learned, and I believe that government can do more.
Well, like my good brother George Lowe says, that it brings some relief. But as how will it go is also another matter for him. He thinks that in the tentative, yes, there could be some relief for us, but it's granted 2 months to deal with that. But you see, there's a price build-up which establishes the cost for fuel in this country,
yes.
the export price. The price build-up is there. Now, he ended with saying that the politics of fuel, to him, should not have been visited at all, because we have done same. They are doing same as we speak. Maybe he hasn't done it here, but I've listened to his communicators as well. Hey, the government is, if you like, insensitive. Yes. And then look at the price of fuel. It's still there. But you see, the point I want to make is that there's a law establishing MPA. There's a law. And of course, there's a law establishing OEMCs in this country, which, the MPA regulates as imposed by Parliament, like he rightly to come back to look at it before. And we have all agreed. In 2015, it was the NDC that was in power. The was revisited or was visited. And by then, I remember Moses Saga and Co. did a good job pushing to say that, look, let us go the deregulation way. Yeah. So that government has no hand. The only hand that government might have has to do with the levies that maybe they may propose for Parliament for us to add that to the build-up, which today, the proposal, look, let's get some of these levies out. Consumer, you buy the fuel price. Clearly, to play. Clearly, the amount of money outside, then on OMCs in this country has to play a role. Okay, then of course the levies will have to be part of it, and it all comes in as it were. Point I want to make is that we should not do politics so much with it. I want to side with him, because you don't have what it takes to determine the price. But you don't buy that. Private individual goes to buy my fuel and come, and I want to sell it 10%. That comes with it, they add to it before they establish it. Out there know that this is what it is. We do not tell them. Now, government only will say the margin that goes to bust, maybe if it's 9 pesos, let's reduce it to 6 pesos. The margin that goes to MPA, maybe if it's 5 pesos, let's reduce it to 3 pesos. We cannot also say that we will zero all, because bust must operate, MPA must operate. Haulage of the transport person, the person who is transporting the fuel from, say, Tema Harbour to, say, Gupe or to, say, Tamale, must be paid. How about the margins that all this thing comes out as it were? So the point I want to make is that, yes, we have done the politics in the past, but it's time for us all to sit and reality. Why? We cannot say the NPP will be in power. We cannot say the NDC will be in opposition forever. The possibility of NDC coming back is the possibility of NPP also retaining power. But nonetheless, whoever is in power, the reality that we understand and come to terms with has to do with the price build-up, has nothing to do with government's effort, except the levies that we today are seeking to reduce. So I think that is a good move, and I pray that when Parliament reconvenes, Parliament will look at it, and of course I will side with him if there could be some extension because we need to indeed find a way of cushioning the plight of people. We have COVID has actually ravaged the world.
Okay.
Can find.
I'll come back to you. Let's get onto the phone line. We've been joined by the Executive Director, Institute of Energy, Nana. So much for holding on.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to your listeners and to the panelists.
Nana, government doesn't have a hand in preventing what we are seeing as far as the hikes are concerned. Is that a position you agree with?
Well, are we saying government doesn't have any control?
Not entirely, to some extent.
To a very large extent, government can influence the price of fuel, the direction, whether to go up or to come down. Government has the power to influence that. Just like the international market price, that influence price as well. And so government cannot absolve itself from any good that will come or any blame that will be put forth if prices have taken up. I explained this.
Okay.
The prices of fuel on the world market is the same. Whether an American is buying or a Ghanaian is buying or an Indian or being sent to Turkey, the price is the same on the world market. What changes it is that either by maybe introduction of levies or taxes or call it subsidies, it can influence what on the domestic market. That's one. The next thing is that can you manage the supply and the price risk as a country fall within our ambit? If we have to do that, have the stake in deciding the direction of your price.
Nana, very quickly, what do you make of this intervention in anticipation of the mounting taking off an average of 15 pesos as far as the PSR levy is concerned? Significant?
Well, it is not. What we say is when we're in a desperate situation, you take desperate and to be quite reactionary and not workful. Over the last 1 year, government has not increased taxes on less level. However, government is forced again to reduce of the levies or the margin as we have it today. That's what happened because mid of last year, we were buying a fuel of electrical fuel of about 40 pesos. Today, it's about 50% up. You can't say that government introduced levies to that extent. What is happening is the world market is really hitting us hard, and we don't have any form of mechanism to manage that supply and price risk as a country. Last year, the taxes and levies was about 2.1 Ghana cedis per liter, and so it corresponded to almost 50% of the price. Today, the taxes are almost around the same level, and it contributes to about 30% of the price of fuel. Why is taxes? Because they are not the country. Just last year alone, as a case, what we are told to do is that the input mechanism of thermal oil refinery, so-called BOST, these are mechanisms that you can use to also manage. This importers of this product, dollars, in procuring the commodity, they also see the CD depreciation. And so the same quantity, more or less, and of course the CD will keep on depreciating. And so there are losses in there from the forex market as well. and international market, our policy is supposed to cushion us price risk, have also, as we speak today, both cannot claim to hold any strategic role for the country. At the point, within the last 14 months, oil was less than $20 per barrel. It's even sold a negative. This is a season that we could have bought more oil, store it, process it at another day, knowing that the world market is quite cyclical, and then you have value. And so, moment that you see prices fall on the international market, you quickly, just like a raining day, you stop because the next direction is going to go up. So we start to also work on the mechanism.
In the case of Bust, of course, we saw crude prices hitting zero on the international. Have enough in Bust, making it well, that agency to take advantage of the falling crude prices on the international market in terms of its reserves?
Over the last 15, 20 years, a lot of investment has gone into Bust, largely for purposes of building storage, also transportation, pipelines, barges, and also, there are two key medium of transportation for Bust. And so the storage capacity of Bust and the transportation capacity, we actually okay as a country. What we fail to do about holding strategic rewards for the country, this is what we are failed to do. It's some seasons have come to pass where they sell some, but over the last 4 or 5 years, it's been difficult for them. And so one would have thought that in this 16 pesos or suspended month, that being the price stabilization and recovery levy, because it has failed for many years to stabilize prices, one would have thought that we could channel this into something more substantial in helping us manage this fuel, situation we have. Because this, whether they suspend it or not, price of fuel tomorrow next will go up. If they suspend, the price will go up by about 20%. If they don't do, more than 30% per liter will happen. And so the removal of suspension of the price stabilization and recovery levy is not a fear to the persistent rise of fuel we have in the country. We should look for a more effective mechanism in managing that.
And Nana, what's that effective mechanism from where you sit as an expert in this area?
I have mentioned the dollar rate itself. If we can manage that the forex exposure, then of course it will impact on fuel prices. If we can also store some of the oil at good times and managed by an effective body, it will help us. If some oil refinery can be positioned to refine our indigenous crude, then of course some of the cost components is taken care of because your freight cost will be lower because of proximity. And I tell you what, the kind of crude that we produce as a country as one of the best. And so these are the things that we can begin to look at. Then, of course, channel stabilization and recovery levy into the strategic world fountain. We need money to fund that very, situation.
Nana, we know traditionally the winter season comes with hikes in the price of crude on the global markets. And I was just asking myself, what would be the impact of hikes on this relief given to consumers by the road against?
What it's going to do is that because it's the need of the systematic approach. 15 worth the ordinary consumer. I tell you, 15 pesos on gasoline, 14 pesos or so on LPG and gas oil will not be felt by the consumer. It's quite negligible, and this is not even a total removal. Something more, sustainable is what we need to look at. Trust me, we can take away all the taxes today. 2 cities, 10 pesos. Then somewhere 40 pesos per liter. Before the close of the year, the price of fuel can go to 5 cities. So this is not sustainable way of managing this. Let's look at a way where the will be huge. Disposable income of Ghanaians, as well.
Okay. Nana, very finally, in some few seconds, I want to gauge your thoughts on the proposal. I've heard in the public space some arguing that reintroduce or suspend the deregulation policy, as we saw this went extremely high. Is it permissible? Is it feasible? Is it something we can do, looking at the market factors?
Why do we want to regulate fuel price? Why aren't we regulating the supply of tomatoes? Regulating the supply of onion? Regulating the in the country? This is a free market, of course, that we should, rather champion, so that market forces will rather dictate what price should be. What lies within the ambit as the people is to manage our forests. Both mechanism, tall but must work. It will be enough to still entertain the deregulation, regime. If you scrap it, what are you doing? Are you going to subsidize? What are subsidies done to us as a country? I think this forward, we shouldn't look back. So that we reinforce the deregulation regime and ensure that it will work to the advantage of Ghanaians. If we find any catalyzation in the system, I think we should break it down. If the price of fuel on the world market, the cost of distributing the market, then they can tell what a liter of fuel should be. If we believe that some people are cheating the system, let's stop them. But don't break down the bigger, picture we have today, a deregulated market. That's a good market we have.
No.
Let's stop the leakages, that's all.
I'm grateful for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, sir, and to your listeners.
Okay. It's still morning, though. 12 minutes to the top of the hour. I don't know why I'm in a rush. But that was the Executive Director, Institute of Energy Security, Nana Mwesi, who has been helping us to appreciate the dynamics in the pricing of fuel. Time that government has suspended the price stabilization levy to cushion Ghanaians ahead of Christmas. Of course, a lot of discussion. Final thought of my guest in the studio before we move on to our next. Let me start with you.
I think I like the suggestions that Nana Mwesi gives, and especially when he talks about bust et al. Working. Sure that it's been done.
I felt a sharp twinge when he mentioned Tor.
No, of course, I leakages. He added leakages. So we should address all this. I think that it's crucial. Deregulation. That is why we have a free market economy. I'm not against it, and I'm okay. And we cannot stop or gag anybody from doing business. But again, what does the deregulation do? All OMCs dotted around and BDCs dotted around, determined by themselves. based on whatever they have been able to do to procure their products and how it goes.
Yep.
And then after the charges, they can't call. Now, my point here is that Go Energy, DC, and GOEL is an OMC under Go Energy. BOST is also in place, and BOST, of course, has some stake in Go Energy and by extension GOEL, as it were. Now, Go Energy, GOEL, BOST, and TOR, what can we do as a country to anticipate these challenges and then put them together to say, and all harness your efforts to see that the capacity to store, what can we do to be able to get some reserves stored so that in times of like instead of we rely on BDCs to go and bring and charge us exorbitantly, then we say government at the end of the day, if for example, or 4 cities, government will say let's reduce it and sell it for 20%.
I'm not cutting you, but as a financial journalist, I've been and anytime you ask BOST why they are not taking advantage and collaborating with TOR to live together, the needed investment for them to have to hold it's not there.
Yes, of course. Sometimes, you know, press companies are this way. Certain times, government does not need to give them under very strenuous conditions or strict conditions that they say government said, okay, they're supposed to be up for them, but yet they're still going to pay to government, as it were, because on its own, despite the fact that it's government. But the point I'm making here is that if you want to invest in BOST, then government must sit down strongly with them, giving you this money specifically not for your BOST margin or whatever, it's for you to go out there and secure products for your reserves, so that if we know that we have about 50% of what BOST is holding for Ghana, then times like this come, we don't need to come and say we are taking all the levies and let the person who's out there forced to reduce his price. There'll be competition. But as it is now, if the government strategic reserve is the private person who has his fuel, he decides to say, I'm selling this, there's nothing you can do about it.
Mr. Command, your party is in office.
Yes. Yeah,
so all these fine ideas you are bringing up.
I have been a member of BOST board for some time, but now there came up. Like that's why I'm saying I'm some amount of shares with GOEL, DC, okay, BOST marketing. Let's use the go. Okay, it's also a strategic player in all this. What can we do to get TOR, Go Energy, GOEL, and BOST come together and then address this? Then of course we can think into the future.
You see, the argument you are making, it's also a problem that has risen because of lack of continuity of ideas. If we were a people who believed in continuity in many things, in many ways, I'm sure that this argument might even have come. Why am I saying that? If you went into the deregulation argument, this exactly was what that Go Energy was brought. BOST will have reserve. We'll find cheaper ways of storing, so that when GOEL becomes the national pride standard. So if GOEL is selling for 2 cities and GOEL is dotted all over the country, you would also be forced to sell maybe even at 2 cities. And then we can stabilize the price. But some way, some continuity didn't. When there was a change of government, possibly these ideas was
distorted.
Yes, but I believe that we should go back to the, because you see, the oil sector is one of those sectors that we cannot cede to market forces. It is dangerous.
It's not really easy. Yeah.
You cannot, because it affects everything, every single thing.
It's a primary commodity.
It's a primary commodity, so it's not one.
Not to even cut you. They say no, BOST don't do marketing. Allow us, you just do storage, and because of this. Yeah. But they know when they do marketing, by extension, I mean to a large extent, they may be affected. You understand?
Yeah. We need to go back to the drawing board and find more sustainable ways. Problems. You can have for the problem, facturation and things like that. For me, I want to be kind. It will continue to be with us, unless and until our exports are more than the imports. we will continue to have challenges with our currency. And once we continue to have challenges with our currency, come up because we have control of the forces, but do our homework well. And when things get, we will have a way of bringing it back. Our people a bit to where we would have loved to, but at least it would have been much better than the situation we find ourselves in.
Thank you, gentlemen. Subject of the day, the National Communication Authority has approved the licenses of 133 radio stations for operations. The list includes Radio Gold and Radio XYZ, which were part of the stations closed down in 2017 for not complying with the licensing terms according to the NCA. The approval is, however, subject to the applicant attending a sensitization workshop on the terms and conditions of FM radio broadcasting authorizations. Quite some good news for plurality of media, which is key to our democratic dispensation, and the fact that there have been a lot of argument around for some of these stations that were closed down. So I think it's quite good. But let's pick the thoughts of our studios. Let me start with you, Mr. That's funny. Radio XYZ, Radio Gold, based on your political interest, have been given the go-ahead to start work?
Well, happy that all stations and those whose licenses have been restored, happy that they've all been restored. You see, yes, I'm a politician, but I'm also a journalist, eventually. So, clamp down or seeming clamp down on the media space, it's very worrying. You see, you are mentioning, because that you believe I will be interested. Why did regulation and issues things have been used? Fine. On the ground though, sometimes we are too happy to kill an ant with a sledgehammer when it doesn't suit us. I am happy that, as a caveat, they are saying these radio stations and remote places, some are being run by people who are very little training in radio. They are going to train them and give them take them through a seminar to understand relations and all of these things. That is what should have been done and shut them down. I mean, look at Radio Gold. Look at all these stations you are mentioning. Do you know how many young people were thrown off their jobs? Then, you know, make so much money, they don't. But at least that was a job, a day, a paycheck for some people. Or that got up in the morning and went and worked in our radio stations as producers and things like that, and exhibited their abilities and made them happy. Suddenly, people were just, you know, they just shut down. They didn't have a job. So many things. I think that never in the history of this country should we treat the media like that, because the constitutional injunction, if you read it carefully, in fact, even regulation was not seriously contemplated. It was just a matter of we think that we not go overboard. In these licensing issues, you know, have brought us where we are. That somebody has not renewed their license and this and that. Pele FM, for instance, I have been very bitter about that, because not only did they pay their license, they were just told that they paid it, and so they closed them down. It's a vicious because these radio and were on it tools and they were comfortable. We all there have been demonstrations and things like that. For me, I'm happy that everybody has seen the need, you know, to bring these people back and help them with regulation. I think that the training, the NCA training, should be continued. Should be, one, we get quality. Two, people understand the system. You see, whenever there is a law passed in this country, one of the things that for me worries me most is that it's passed, Parliament passes it, they say President has ascended. Do not receive the requisite training to understand what they are doing. And nobody should tell me that they should have gone to get the law and read. You understand? Because when you go and take a law and read, sometimes you read the law and even
but
we ask for interpretation.
But not even before you come in, don't you find it for a media station in operation, and for nearly a decade you have not renewed your license, and when you're closed down it becomes an issue?
I'm not. I don't find it worrying at all. Like, to be very frank with you, some of us, from my days as a student of journalism, that things to operate, the law should just regulate the extent to which you go, wavelength and things like that. That you don't interfere with that. But this thing of every day going to renew your license, it was for us. We believe that that was not in contemplation.
Why?
Why? Because you see, freedom of expression, freedom of expression should not be taxed. Let me put it that way. People should feel free to express themselves to the extent that their freedom, they know that their freedom ends
as a business and making profits.
But
do you think hospitals, whether hospitals should be renewing their license and those stuff, and if the licenses should close down?
You see, you are using private hospitals that if they don't renew their licenses, they should close down. Why should they be closed down? There are other ways of doing these things. Because when you close down that private hospital, where the government itself has not been able to provide health care for everybody, you think it's a prudent way of doing things? There are many things many examples I can give you, and that is my view. I think that until you are at a certain level, some of these things, services, you understand, they may operate as a commercial entity because maybe they may need to pay and other things. But if you look at some of the figures that were being churned out, where would they find the money? So some of the radio stations operating in the hinterland, where the only source of income is funeral announcement, how much can they make to be able to repay some of these exorbitant licensing fees? So you see, when we are looking at things, we must look at it from a social perspective, and not just that we set up radio gold. So they are expected to, and even I always say that even in this country. So I wake up in the morning, I said, come on, looking at the way you are looking fresh, your tax liability for this year
is that how we determine?
Pastor, provisional, go and check. Go and check. Business, then they say, oh, provisional tax for the year. This is what we have raised.
Okay.
You understand? There are so many things differently and attain the same results in this country. But suffice that we are happy that the licenses that we restored, I believe that they should have a system. They will not find it too difficult to pay. That's another thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, his line of argument, he's happy, but the fact that the radio stations were even closed in the first place, to him, was not even started with.
You see, it is not for any reason that Article 33 of the Constitution of the Republic is in place, and where you believe strongly that you're right, either as a group or a person or an entity, you resort to the court to seek redress. And the Constitution directs us, which includes media organizations like this. Now, when took I want to find out if indeed there were to be corrected that thought that, look, this wasn't proper in the eyes of the law, and for that matter, we are going to test that in court to ensure that they reverse that
some
decision.
of them went to court.
Some did, and what was the outcome? What was the outcome? When they went, what was the outcome? You see, the point I want to establish is that if there's no wrong, there will certainly not be a move to correct such a wrong. I think that I feel refreshed that all these stations are back. Okay, I'm not sure you're stopping me because you've given me about 7 minutes to discuss this matter.
I'll give you the 7 minutes, but I want you to quickly wrap up so we bring in Muhib from Media Foundation.
Oh, that's very interesting. You have not been fair to me.
No. I'll give you the rest of the minutes to respond. The 7 minutes will be given to you. He is on the line. Let's
get to Muhib
with him and get back. Muhib, thank you so much for your time. The senior program officer with the Media Foundation for West Africa in charge of freedom of expression. Muhib, happy that the stations are going after more of not operating.
Well, we at the MFW have always out the shutdown. We've argued that it was extreme and toxic for our democracy. So the decision to allow the stations to resume broadcasting actually rectifies a situation that should not have been in the first place. And so we see it in a positive light only from the perspective of press freedom and the right of citizens to access information from their trusted sources. So for us, we are cleaning up a mess that they shouldn't have created. Therefore, there isn't much to celebrate.
Muhib, what do you make of the reasons cited for the closure stations?
Well, those reasons have largely not changed. The purpose for which the radio stations were closed down and the objective may have been attained by the vested interest, and therefore, regardless of whether the status quo remains or not, we can allow the radio stations to come back and operate. The point is, the stations now may have infringed the law. Equally, guilty that were allowed to operate.
So, based on that, the closure in the closure itself was not right, was not properly done.
The closure was not done in a transparent manner, and that was the reason the NCA was prepared to even meet the MFWA in court to contest the status of all radio stations and their day of initial licensing and their last day of authorization. It is based on this that we can be sure that all the radio stations that were still operating had actually discharged their obligations to the NCA. And if the NCA was not interested in letting this information come out in order to put minds at rest and to give credibility to the exercise that was being doubted and contested, then it was clear that it wasn't honestly done.
Okay. So very finally, what will you say to just of these platforms going forward to prevent positioning themselves in a manner that the authority or will even consider clamping them down?
I think that there is a lesson for the Africans to learn, and that is that they must ensure that they are always in good standing by discharging their statutory and to all other regulatory institutions.
Thank you.
They should that the government of the day is sympathetic of, because a government can change and you find yourself in trouble. On the side of the NCA, also be more proactive by publishing the status and good standing. So you would know that when they carry out an exercise in fulfillment or in accordance with the law, and not based on any other partisan and parochial considerations.
Thank you so much for your time. It's a senior program officer for freedom of expression at the Media Foundation of South Africa. Us to appreciate the latest move by the National Communication Authority, which has given clearance to 133 radio stations. Some of them had withdrawn, some were reapplying, some also fresh licenses. Wrap up with you on this issue on the floor. If you want to tie your response, your whatever you want to say to what Mohib said, also you're allowed to do so.
I will. I think when you look at the tail end, or when you listen to Mohib, and at the tail end, he admonishes that radio stations must learn lessons from this. They must ensure that they are always in line. They must also ensure that they are in tandem with the law that seeks to establish them. I'm happy with what he has said. This is the way to go. But when somebody says to say that, look, why this action? That is why I questioned in the first place if there's a correction. And if there's going to be a correction, should there be a measure put in place to ensure that correction? Now, those who come after NCA to say that, look, freedom of speech is, as it were, established by the Constitution of Ghana. Freedom of press is established by the Constitution of Ghana. I've read Article 162 of the Constitution. I've read Article 12 of the Constitution of Ghana as well, which talks about freedom of speech, but it's not absolute. Even Article 162, which establishes press freedom, indeed, envisages organic laws that will streamline and regulate media houses. I've been a media person before. I've been a broadcaster like you. You understand? And I understand that, look, we cannot have a society where there would not be laws regulating. We'll end up having a banana republic. So the point I want to make is that from some of these things, it is not for any reason that a law establishes NCA. The that we have, or the frequency that we have regulated, the radio stations that we have, take and make sure they are all in good standard. It is not for anything that we did that. And for them to have, and today, ensure that they have purged all these people of these wrongdoings and brought them back, the duty now lies on us, who are operators of these radio stations, to make sure that at least we go by the law. Now, my brother George Lowe spoke about...
Even before you bring in George Lowe, Mohib said, and in fact, this has been a key message that has been trumpeted by the media, that a number of other radio stations were not in good standing but were spared from the closure. According to him,
that's his data.
Was they went to the NCA and said, if what we are saying is not true, then furnish us with the data for us to see the standing of all radio stations in Ghana. In fact, the matter ended in court and
did what?
Initially, the NCA was reluctant to release the data.
I disagree with you. I am privy to the case myself.
We are all.
The Media Foundation, of course. What they did was they made a demand. The NCA says, look, indeed, you have the right to make such a demand. However, to establish such a data, we need to charge you for this cost. 2,000 cedis. And that is what got them to say, look, the NCA is right to the information, but it's saying that to go fetch this information XYZ. So pay the charge.
So the court upheld the amount NCA was...
Upheld it. The court upheld it, said the NCA has done nothing wrong. That pay and then get your information. So for anyone to say that they were denied the information because some certain radio stations did not meet the threshold and yet they were operating is not true. We can't speak to speculations. You see, and I'm being a politician, but of course I have told myself that I'll be objective on matters, not because I just... And I'm saying more so when I've been in the media myself. It is important. My radio station, not because of this program, I'll say it. My radio station was closed down in the Upper East region, in DC, with the claim that license, and I was not given the final license. Why was I on? If I'm to go by the argument of Judge Lowe, where he says that, look, licensing regime should not even be looked at in that extent because it's a gag of the media or it censors the media. Okay, I would say that they were unfair to me. But if I strictly have to go by the law, I will also say that I did not fulfill, okay, everything that ensured that I should be on air. That is why I was closed down and I had to be quiet. So a respecter of the law must be somebody who indeed will seek equity and bring equity. Me, I am happy. But for Radio Gold, being quite, political and being also part of this, so much. 131 radio stations. But when you asked Judge Lowe, you cited XYZ. He was asking you a question.
He asked me.
He cited. Yeah. I'm not saying you cited radio XYZ because that is where the interest lies in Accra, the country. But regardless, point I want to make is that if you know this is my venture, my duty, and the law says do XYZ to be in operation, nobody can come after you wrong. You should be able to do the right thing. Finally, polarization of the media content on air. This is state media, and I want to commend you guys. You're doing so well. You're careful with the questions you ask, you bring on board and what they say, because is that we are enjoying. Radio stations are caused mayhem and problems in this world. Rwanda, for example, how did the genocide start? It was a radio station. Now we can have all these radio stations around. In the belief that, or with the belief that of speech, let everybody say, if we are not careful, one day somebody sits somewhere in a village and use a frequency and of course disturb a piece of this country, and we are in trouble.
What you're saying cuts
so,
across.
Of course, and that is why I want to say that polarization should not be the way to go. There was an attempt to institute this the media when National Media Commission thought that it wasn't proper and some other school of thought that it wasn't proper. Even me, I think that it's to a large extent you want to gag the media. But we can look at certain portions of content. How should we go about our radio stations in this country? Because we've seen examples in some countries where they've caused war. Okay? So that at least when we monitor them strictly and ensure that they are doing what is right, with a great respect, it will help all of us. I am for media pluralism, but I'm not for strict polarization of media.
That you see, the law in itself is another thing. I've always said that I really wanted these issues.
No, it's clear even in the Constitution when you read it well. It's not. Yeah, I know.
So when
clear.
When
the Constitution
things like that, NCA is just saying that, well, they are managing the petrol and they are charging for the roots.
No, of course the law says no.
The law says
I made that argument.
Yes. Yes.
Too.
So you see, he said that there shall be no impediment of private press or media. In particular, there shall be no law requiring any person to obtain a license as a prerequisite to the establishment or operation of a newspaper, journal, or other media for mass communication or information.
But when you take the act,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Establishing it,
that's what I'm saying.
That
maybe to look at the act itself and this constitution. Maybe some job some of us must do, and if we need to go and strike out something, we must strike out something. Yeah. Because the intent, being a former lawmaker and having been in charge of, always tell people that let's always go to the intent of the framers of the Constitution. Half the time we are arguing about laws that the framers of the Constitution did not intend.
Did not even intend to. Yes.
You understand? Mm-hmm. Because that at 12. You remember when Rawlings died? One of the GJ's major eulogy was thanking him for the chapter 12 of the Constitution, because the levels of freedom set under Rawlings during that time is unimaginable.
You see, but it's Judge Lowe. You see, when you read this as a law, the provision of the, and again, the same Constitution tells you that if there are other laws,
yes,
okay,
yes, inconsistent, we agree.
Yeah. However, the NCA law or the communication law will not tell you that it's inconsistent with what is there. It's only the regime that you need to be licensed, and this same Constitution tells you again that they can also institute.
I think there's a problem. Gentlemen, we have less than 10 minutes. Let's touch on our final topic, where government workers, we know without Ghana cards, will have their salaries frozen from December 1, 2021. The Controller and Accountant General's Department said the policy forms part of ongoing efforts to synchronize its systems, and the Communication Ministry has already indicated that the laws specify that Ghana cards, the Ghana card is the sole form of identification verification in this country. In a statement on October 13, the department said the harmonization will help deliver speedy, secured and verifiable payroll services while reducing the risk of paying undeserved claims. However, the labor unions have not, this has not gone down well with them. They've been agitating and asking that the period is too close and might cause a problem for some of their members. Let me start with you, Mr. George, once again. We know there is a problem with our payroll scheme in this country where a lot of undeserved claims are being paid. We started the NIA registration for a while. The NIA 1 failed. NIA 2, we've seen the rollout of the cards. A lot of people have received yes, including myself. Then now the government is trying to ensure that the data system, the data is synchronized so that it can detect some of these things to plug the leakages and save the country some resources. And we find the unions not happy with it. Anything you want to share on this?
Unions don't be happy, but many of us think that some of these things, the intent is good. But the role, I always say that, you see, we are policy cycle deficient in this country. So most of the things, you have very fantastic ideas, and yet operationalizing them becomes a problem. So sometimes we start from the bottom rather than you know, to the top, or something rather than to the bottom. Now, what am I talking about? Basic. So you want all government workers, what system has been put in place? Are you expecting every worker to walk to NIA and register? Is that would help? We all know where government workers are, don't we? Government goes and does head count and things like that. So why don't you roll out a system where for the next, you tell yourself for the next 3 months or 4 months, only government workers to register for NIA. When you, and then you bring this, you don't have a problem.
Well, we saw a general exercise. What may possibly have prevented?
Many people still do not have NIA cards, and the reality is that, you know, there are many places. Even network was a problem in some, and because of network issues, people took a long and couldn't register. Even at Adenta here, where I live, it was war. You went in the morning, there was a long queue and systems were not working and things like that. The registration process. Nobody says that. Having said that, I am only saying that bring the process closer to the end user so that you two sitting at controller and accountant general, you can more quickly. They cannot even go and do that. What provisions have you made for them? You understand? Yesterday, somebody was telling me a very interesting story about how he got to London, and 2 days later, knock at the door. Then the COVID team came and said, "Oh, there is an international visitor at this house. Where is he?" He had his document. Bring him. They questioned him. Have you taken a jab? We didn't seem to. That is how you do that. That's how the system should work, so that you do not make the system in such expecting people that well, when I make the law, people will naturally come at it. Create the situation where it is friendly. It is, and I don't believe that the labor unions would have been ready. And you see what they said, time. So I can make a suggestion. Tell yourself that maybe by focus on government workers, ensure that each and every one of them has an NIA card. Then we go get on from there. Very simple.
Okay. I think, you see, we are just noise around ourselves, needless noise, unnecessary noise.
What do you mean by that?
When I say that, first of all, very well. Parliament, very well. Parliament passed a law in 2012, national ID registration, regulation, as it were. 2111. This law, when you look at section 7 of the law, the regulation, okay, it's our what we are talking about today. What to use the national identification card for, and how important it should appear to all of us. We are mandated by this law to use it for so to get the system right, as he rightly used the the London. Now, controller, you are aware of this law. The workers, public sector workers, okay, who fall under Article 190 of the Constitution. Also, here. The brouhaha is that controller and accountant general comes out to say that by 21st of December or so, was it
First.
By 1st of December or so, if you are not registered or captured under the national identification card, then you may not be able to access your salary. I find that communication problematic. That is why I'm saying we have created noise. Why is it? First of all, the time frame. Secondly, I want to find out how well have you engaged the public sector workers. Thirdly, are you their employers? Controller, you're not the employer of the public sector. You are supposed to ensure that payrolls are actually handled and well. And you think that you have to synchronize the numbers of the card to whoever and wherever the person is working. We agree with you. My point is that even if you want to issue such a communique, you want to issue such, tell them that, look, our data will go off at this time. If you are a public sector worker and you have not registered yet, do whatever you can in your capacity to help us. You are all captured. It's a simple piece of communication. But to issue a kind of a seeming threat, a revolt. And that is why the workers' union and public sector workers think that it's not proper. So I'm saying that it's needless noise. First, the law says go and register. The law says you need that card to work because you're mandated. Again, controller, you also need that data to able ensure that you system very well. It is simple to call heads of unions of workers. Communicate. Tell them by this time, our data is changing. If they do not do it, they cannot be captured. This can even be done without being used in the media.
And
so
that's what I find problematic. When I heard the union saying they were not consulted,
it's bad.
They just woke up to this press release.
So yesterday I had a relief when I listened to the Deputy Minister for Labour, Bright, who said, look, truth be said, his minister has tasked him to liaise with controller find, that is out. And he thinks they are amenable, and they sit down and look at it properly. The timing is a bit poor, and I sit here, I don't have my ID card, my Ghana card yet. I had to go to my village, Nanton. And having done that, the time I finished, they said no, to issue it again. And that it's not just that your card is given to you. So I should go. I've gone waiting until I called the office, and the office said, oh, your cards are in. But the issuance of same must be done through the same process and through my president. Yeah. But then they haven't come yet. They've not given them time yet. So when the time comes, he will call me to come for my... When the time comes, when is it? Then if I'm a public worker, then you tell me by the 1st December, I'm going to be cut off. Won't I be alarmed? Of course. I will be alarmed. And it's not my fault that I am... So I think that it's just communication problem. Controllers should try to soften their stance. The public workers must also in place which mandates you to have the card, which says that the card is to move on. I think there are other big countries where it's working and everything because they have a system where they can identify everybody. It is proper we educate platform can be used. Buy GTV. Now, tell us that we're using this system, but now because of identity, we're going to use this system. And if you are not captured in a card, you can't be in the system. So please, employers, ensure that your workers it's just simple. That's why we have to sit down and make noise on this matter. It's needless.
Permit us, Mr. Judge, in 30 seconds, if you have been to...
I think that, again, I stand where I stand on the fact that, like Kamal said, you see, this country, every tax that we must do, simple tax.
A simple tax is needless.
We want to do it in such a way. We want to dramatize it. I believe that we must, it's not about even government looking bad, but we must always look at the way we roll out things effortlessly. So that we don't create, not half the time we want to create a problem for the person who must even benefit from the service. Then what kind of service are we giving?
Okay.
So we must all endeavor to do, and we must know, because this is not rocket science. When COVID came, who were the first people we asked to go and take the job? Were they not specific people who we thought that,
so we could capture 700,000 people who are in the public sector.
So at the close of the day,
capture everybody.
At all material times, we should know what our priorities are.
Okay.
Without knowing what our priorities are, we always find...
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. It has been an insightful discussion. George Lowe, former MP, North Dai, and Kamaluddin Abdullahi, Deputy Communication Director, New Patriotic Party. This has been Weekly Press Review, your #1 wrap-up analysis. We've been discussing a lot of issues. I believe you've enjoyed it. We'll be repeating this show tomorrow at 8 a.m. on this platform, and that's all we can have for you now. Don't go away, because at 2 p.m. we're coming your way with a news package telling you all that is happening in the country and beyond. My name is Sani Abdurrahman. Enjoy your day.